Hi, this is Morgan Somerville, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy Regional Director.
My name is Merrill Harrell. I'm the Executive Director of the Southern Appalachian Wilderness Stewards.
Hey everyone, and thanks for joining.
My name is Dave Casey, and I'm the District Ranger on the Pisgah.
My name is Clay Wooldridge. I'm the Director of the Cradle of Forestry with Find Outdoors. We were so sad to hear that we weren't going to be able to host the Wilderness Skills Institute at our campus this year.
Some of us and many more would have been gathering at the Cradle of Forestry for the 10th Annual Wilderness Skills Institute to learn and work shoulder to shoulder in partnership for wilderness, traditional skills, and trails.
We're not able to do that this year and keep everyone safe.
So even though you're not on the Pisgah National Forest physically, I consider it the home of Wilderness Skills Institute. So welcome to the Pisgah virtually.
Things look a little different this year.
One thing is you probably won't get rained on.
But we are really thrilled to be able to offer these 6 sessions virtually. We hope that you share learning that you have freely and openly.
As a former wilderness instructor myself, I know how important the community is to be able to come together and meet new people and to learn new skills and to see all those old faces that are out there doing the same kind of work that you're doing.
And so I strongly encourage you just to take every opportunity you can during this time to focus on cultivating those relationships.
Because the community created around WSI is one of its greatest values.
And we hope that this will help build our community of stewards so that we come through this time of challenge even stronger and more committed than ever before. Thanks again.
Thank you for coming.
Welcome to the Wilderness Skills Institute.
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 And welcome to the Wilderness Skills Institute.
Around 1975, we had 4.6 million people who had visited our national forests, or I'm sorry, in 1927, we had about 4.6 million people visiting our national forests. By 2000, we crested 1 billion people that had visited our national forests. As you can see, these numbers have continued to just go up, no matter how they've kind of been drawn or where people are going outside. Because again, those numbers I just quoted were just national forests. As you can see on the bottom graph of these two things, state parks are our dark horse or where people are spending a lot of time outside. I say that because I've worked on federally designated land my entire career, so I've really not paid that much attention to state parks in particular. That's my bad and my bias. But it is important, I always throw this in because of that, that still those parks that are the closest to where people live, those the closest to people's backyard, that folks can visit on their afternoons after picking up their kids from school as a place to kind of take care of their kids and to raise their kids are that much more important. And since this is America, we need to give a little bit more credence to the amount of money that the outdoor industry brings into our regular economy. This is a comparison. I actually didn't realize until just now that you cut off the bottom part of this that shows the different things that this is actually comparing to. The outdoor industry roughly brings in about 900 billion. That's the orange line that you're looking. Just for the one point of reference that I can remember off the top of my head, oil and gas is the figure to the left. These numbers are from an outdoor industry OIA 2018 report in particular, so these are fresh numbers. They have amazing, great breakdowns by state, by federal lands, state parks, that can kind of show exactly a lot of the economic benefits that our American economy depends on in the outdoor industry. This is the context that a lot of people still need to help when it comes to the idea of providing for more public spaces to go outside, even though those trends, the amount of people that are going outside, you'd like to see an increase in designation and increase more land for folks to go up with that too. But a lot of these numbers are very, in context, are that much more important to kind of bring into. So that being said, let's actually get to what the topic is. So in the early 90s, we finally have got kind of landed on, there are a couple different efforts that have kind of risen to the top of the best one, Uinta's and some of the Bureau of Land Management out in the West, but really the Forest Service and NOLS kind of coming together and signing an MOU in 1991 to kind of really come across and make an all-encompassing set of principles for people to understand across national forests at that time. NOLS, if y'all are familiar, I forgot to say there was one of the pictures in my intro slide is National Outdoor Leadership School. It was founded in 1965, the year after the Wilderness Act, by Paul Petzold, an outward bound instructor who founded it to go further in outdoor education and to set up future outward bound instructors. They were having to train a lot of outward bound instructors on the fly, and they would rather wanted to have outdoor leadership school to kind of set folks up for that industry in general. I wholeheartedly love NOLS. It was the reason why the Forest Service hired me. Their words, not mine, and gives a lot of amazing context. So it made that much more sense for the Forest Service to reach out to the outdoor leadership leader in outdoor education in 1991. A fact that I keep forgetting for some reason is this is the first instance, I'd love for anyone to correct me on this one. I'm going to go ahead and say first instance of federal land manager partnering for outdoor education for sure, but just partnering with a nonprofit in an MOU like this. This agreement in 1991 is the foundation for what I see as the Wilderness Skills Institute today, how I see the ATC functions today, how I see SAWS exists today. So absolutely amazing starting on this foundation with the Forest Service and NOLS in particular. I'm very much dwelling on that because I know that I've misquoted that and kind of done what this says in the next slide in particular. But real quick before I move, that kind of sparked off a 2-year period of 1991 and 1993 where NOLS and the Forest Service laid this foundation with Leave No Trace that was very much based in science. They started pulling all kinds of ologists all over the country and world to kind of get context together. Enter our favorite expert who was nice enough to come in 2 weeks ago for visitor use management, Jeff Marion, who entered in the conversation and started providing context for Leave No Trace back even before the Park Service was involved. Oh yeah, I'm throwing shade. Also, Bureau of Land Management coming on in 1993 before the Park Service, more shade. 1994 comes in and where it's kind of seen after this period where Leave No Trace is established. The Park Service comes on when Leave No Trace is established as its own entity. This new MOU is signed with Leave No Trace. NOLS still very much stays on creating curriculum and is, still teaches Leave No Trace to this day. I got my very first Leave No Trace trainer when I was 18 years old on that NOLS course in 2008. And it changed my life, that Leave No Trace trainer. So I absolutely love it. I love the path of Leave No Trace in general, and I love how it has been incorporated in all these land management agencies right off the bat. And from there, it didn't stop. All over, as you can see, Leave No Trace signs, posters all over state parks, community parks, different, a lot of different osprey parks, REI, people bringing it into their commercial products to kind of show the importance of it hand in hand. Towards that also beginning, there were a lot of these, there was a lot of discussion on how we were going to pay for Leave No Trace. And all that money came from outdoor recreation, ORCA, different kinds of companies to kind of chip in because they realized that it was very much within their mission statement and vision that it was important to kind of provide some kind of partnership to Leave No Trace. Yeah, so real quick, these are just some hand-picked partners that are to this day our commercial partners of Leave No Trace that regularly cut checks to Leave No Trace. Do any of those sound weird, sound interesting to you guys or surprise to you guys? There are over 100 of these. I'm far from including those, and I wanted to include the big dogs who are cutting the biggest checks. Shout out to Keen, Subaru, Eno, and REI. Can anybody tell me what Niantic is or what product they might do without a Google if they know off the top of their head? And again, feel free to chat or chime in. I can hear you, I can't see you. So Scotty will interpret for me.
See, I got hot air ships, and then Steven says, isn't Niantic a GPS type company? Another one says windmills, weather devices. And then we got Pokemon Go.
Yeah, Pokemon Go, y'all. So Niantic, one of the companies that helped get Pokemon Go, their mission statement is to get people outside. So as much as Pokemon Go might have annoyed people a lot in 2017, I still watch my neighbor walk up and down the block playing all the time. They're still getting people outside and walking regularly, and I could not like more that they cut a decent sized check as a Leave No Trace partner, starting when Pokemon Go lifted off, when they started to get really bad PR, and have kept going thus far. So I really do appreciate that Niantic is up there, as well as But then again, you might question why you might not see some of your smaller shops, your other different organizations that aren't up as a Leave No Trace partner, even though they might be who you heard Leave No Trace from. Not to throw SAWS under the bus, but your SAWS, I don't think, is a Leave No Trace partner because they, in my humble opinion, are contributing a lot more to Leave No Trace, spreading the message, putting courses like this one on. That is that much more important. I love that the ATC is still cutting checks to Leave No Trace as a member. That's great. That's great that we can afford that, and it's fantastic. I think it's more important to talk Leave No Trace than it is to pay Leave No Trace. But that being said, if Buncombe County, the county that I am in Asheville, was not a member of Leave No Trace, I would start giving crap to my Buncombe County friends and see, like, for entities like that, why aren't they a partner? All right. I'm actually going to pause for a second. Any thoughts? I'm going to move. So we've kind of moved past a lot about the Leave No Trace. I'm going to talk a little bit more about their programs in general, but move past the kind of background or anything to Leave No Trace. Cool. I'm going to keep on going. So yeah, like I said, like we all know, because we have all been outside before, when people coming outside, we got into more impacts. Let's get specific around those impacts, specific around Leave No Trace. I'm going to kind of profile our the 7 principles and really try to give you the talking points that I have very much used the past couple of years in the field, the context for around this decision making. So again, the major impacts that we're seeing just in general, before even getting into the principles, we're seeing wildlife impacts, disturbance and altering of their behavior. When they get our food, it very much is disturbing, altering our behavior. Vegetational impacts, when we're going all over, that's what erosion kind of is. You're seeing that pulverization of vegetation. Water resource impacts, especially on a lot of the steeper trails, and just in general the erosion that we have with an excessive amount of impacts and footsteps in the backcountry. Damage to cultural resources, other things. There are a lot of problems and impacts that we'll continue to see as we've kind of gone outside. So again, Leave No Trace is very much science-based. I've brushed up, and I very much recommend y'all check out the new Leave No Trace website that they released within the past year. Their information is getting that much easier to see, as well as they're actually staying a lot more up to date with their scientific literature. It's looking a lot better. Jeff Marion's still coming out with new stuff all the time. So it is still check out the science. I brush up on my science in particular, or rather on my citation points to make sure I wasn't fake newsing y'all too much. So yeah, these are the 7 principles, as well as the end to the Leave No Trace slides in particular, as you will see a clear shift in themes that you will see. I'm not even going to say those out loud because we were about to say them a good amount of times. All right, y'all, you're not on video. That's fine. I don't really expect you guys to. You're going to see me doing a lot of hand signals. I really wish, I miss we were in person. I almost want to make you guys hop on video. But the folks that are nice enough that will hop on video, thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Chloe. I appreciate that. Chloe's going to do some hand signals for me. Whoever would like to and do them with me, thank you. I do appreciate it. I'll try to change my attitude, because a lot of times I start to berate people into joining me. So I'll try to keep it cheery. All right, principle number 1, plan ahead and prepare. All right, so really this is the most important principle. Sorry, I changed up so I can't see my notes anymore. Give me a second. All right. So this is the principle that sets you up for success, that really gives you the opportunity to have your best adventures in the backcountry. Really, what do you need to kind of, to do exactly what I just said, set you up for success? What kind of weather, local regulations are you kind of looking for? What can you expect to have outside? Are you prepared for extreme versions of what you'd expect? You're looking at a picture from the backside of McAfee's Knob taken in the end of May. I started, it was 65 degrees out of the trailhead. I went after one of my exams during the weekday because Virginia Tech loves McAfee's Knob to death. And luckily I brought some kind of a jacket. That was supposed to actually be my rain gear for the day, because it was the only thing in my trunk. Because when I got to the top, it was glazed over. What I really wish I would have got on this picture is when I turned around, stepped on ice, and fell flat on my back, because I did it in a really hilarious way. But either way, the thing that I want to get across is, was I prepared for those, for that kind of change, for that temperature, for that extra 10% that to be expected extreme? Barely. I didn't really have enough snacks for that in particular. I was just on a day hike and I kept it moving. Now, if I would have, slipped off the edge of McAfee's Knob or actually hurt myself or was by myself, it would have been a much larger problem. But it's really just that much more important to check the weather, check the regulations, check to make sure that you have a level of navigation that you understand. Whether that be a map that you have that you can read, that you can navigate, that you, topographic stuff that you understand, or a friend that you trust inherently and that you've asked enough questions to vet that trust, because friends will also get you lost in the backcountry and it'll be their fault, and unfortunately it'll be a little bit your fault too. Also thrown out there, I love the different apps of Guthooks and Avenza that you will see nowadays. The only downfalls of those are when your batteries die. So make sure to have some kind of external battery. Think through your system. Really what I'm asking for you to do is to sit through, Google it, pick up the phone, and make sure you're kind of prepared before you go. If you start asking questions before you go, you're already starting to do this right. Really quick, I've got a friend of mine that I love to, I'll try to keep him anonymous with throw him under the bus. One of everyone's favorite days in the outdoors was back in 2017, August 21st. The solar eclipse coming across the country was absolutely amazing. America left to go outside. I say America, but I'm sure it showed in other parts, in other countries. How would I know that? So yeah, I, as long as Scotty Bowman, were here. I think you see the bottom picture on Bob Stratton Bald, just outside of the Joyce Kilmer Slick Rock Wilderness area. But we had folks all over and rangers all over the place trying to help and prepare for some folks, as well as this ranger who I'll try to keep anonymous. Oh. All right, there we go. All right, so I have a good buddy. Let's just go with a nice generic name, Jake Smith. So Ranger Jake Smith was still doing his patrols in Limbo Gorge Wilderness. There were hundreds of people out on the NC Wall, on Table Rock, on Hawks Head, the two mountains that you see behind you. So he was going all over the place, getting sweaty, really talking to hundreds of people like we were having an amazing day and enjoying the eclipse. Couple hours after the eclipse, people are still outside. He's worried about how many people are camping, none of them having the permits, and him trying to provide the education. He actually, a rainstorm comes in, he gets drenched. He's a marathoner, ran a 50-miler a couple weeks after, actually very soon after this or before this. So he had very little body fat. He started to get wet. Didn't actually have any rain gears. August 21st, he started to run out of his snacks and really didn't anticipate staying outside for that long. His body temperature was cold and he was having a hard time getting warmer. He started hiking down and started going towards his car. Still the fact that he was hiking, it's a Linville Gorge. So he was up on top of the mountain, hiking down a hill, not warming up the same. By the time he was at his car, luckily he was breaking the rules and he was with his girlfriend because she had to drive. He was disoriented. He was starting to slur his word, beyond slurring his words. And by the time he got home, he was calling his girlfriend by his ex-girlfriend's name. Jake ended up in the hospital just that afternoon and that evening getting treated for hypothermia. Despite the fact that he was a very well established, very good shape, knew his way around the backcountry, and came straight from Alaska to work for us, he still got caught. He got caught because he didn't kind of look up for the last 10% and kind of get ready for Leave No Trace in particular. All right. Also, just real quick, extra things to go on, plan ahead and prepare, going super thorough on this. Give it a Google in general, but and check out who you're coming from. Whose Land, great website, and nativeland.ca. Great places for you to throw on and just to check out what is a native land that you were visiting. Where did this land come from? Check it out. It's absolutely fantastic. It's one of the better social media crazes that I'm seeing, or people that are actually hashtagging the native lands of stuff that you're seeing from. So again, plan ahead and prepare. I'm being super thorough on this one because it is the most important. You need to prepare for your extremes. You need to respect regulations because they're there for the right reasons. Pick up the phone and give them a call. Even if you've been to Linville Gorge a million times, you might not realize that it's on fire right now. So give them a call, see if that's what's going on. Especially these days, we have to call the land manager to see what's open. Now I'm giving a shout out to you, coronavirus, just to see exactly what's going on. All right, principle number 2. Travel and camp on durable surfaces. Let me see it. Thank y'all, hand signal gang. Lori, you turned on your video, so now I got it. Thank you, Lori. And I hope that's the real Lori. All right, travel and camp on durable surfaces is that much more important, especially in these amazing places, especially as we see all these people that are going more outside. Does anyone know, answer in the chat box, and I'll keep moving, where this picture is taken from? pause. As you can see, depending on what is needed for that area, a boardwalk was kind of brought in because of the ephemeral wetness that you get in this area on the Appalachian Trail. Ooh, I'm starting to tip the hat a little bit. So depending on the situation,
New Jersey.
Oh yes, absolutely. Just really, I cannot speak highly about the 18 New Jersey. It's just, I want, when people think about New Jersey, I want them to picture the 18 New Jersey. Look at this picture. That's what I want them talking about. And I got family from Jersey. Don't worry about that. So really what we're asking is to concentrate use on existing trails and campsites, to try to very much watch your step, that, you know, when people kind of go off, the pulverization of vegetation can happen very quickly, especially in sensitive areas that are worth protecting. This picture is taken from the Grand Canyon, one of my favorite pictures, signs ever, just great messaging around there. But just the idea that a lot of these sensitive places that we've chosen to protect really cannot handle your footsteps. While you might have had things like grass that I've got my lawn that I walk on every day, that is a resistant and resilient surface that can handle those footsteps over and over again. That's why we play football on grass. As you can see, a lot of different stuff is not quite that way, especially even the maybe alpine or subalpine grasses that you get in other places. So again, we're really wanting to concentrate our use and everything. This picture is some more vegetation from the Linville Gorge. Linville Gorge has been an amazing climbing spot for the past 50 years and will continue to be. Actually, it's been a climbing spot for forever, but we've been rock climbing it for the last 50 years. One of the major difficulties is that we have this Hudsonia montana on a lot of these major routes, which is an endangered species. So having to kind of protect that as well as manage around that can be particularly difficult. A lot of things that you might, more things that you might see in particular is this kind of braiding that you'll see on the Appalachian Trail. A lot of times, what I guess when I see this is that there was a trail that was established. The trail that was established was on a steep enough tread so water drained on that trail. It kind of got more entrenched and impacted, so water continued to drain on that trail like a gutter. Water eventually sat on the trail or was wet when hikers went by. They walked on the high side of it. You get this braiding. What I'm asking for you to do, yes, you, is to plan ahead and prepare, wear shoes that can handle it, and walk in camp on those durable surfaces. I want you to walk straight through that mud puddle next time and prevent this kind of braiding that we'll see regularly. In popular areas, stay on that designated trail. In pristine areas where you're moving around, spread it out. Excuse me, I'm going to kind of move forward as I'm looking at the clock and realize I'm as late as I normally am. Real quick look, this is the current campsite inventory on the Appalachian Trail. Good campsites are found because there are plenty of these that are made. This is actually set to a particular standard. So the ones that are in red are outside of the sustainable standard. Try to pick out and see if you can see a green one. Really what, again, we're asking you to do is to not create your own campsite, that there are plenty of them, to very much use what has already been established. To appreciate when managers are trying to limit the amount of campsites that are out there. Again, I'm preaching the choir because I saw a lot of National Forest Service folks kind of coming in here, very much trying to disperse heavy use. Sorry. So again, good campsites are found, not made. Set yourself up for success. Excuse that typo and the note made. Set yourself up for success to be able to walk through those mud puddles and to kind of go on those durable surfaces. Depending on where you're going, ask when you're picking up the phone, talking to that very kind and amazing person, that visitor center person who answers questions all day, and I don't understand how patient they are. Ask them about any current conditions. If they don't know the answer, they'll let you know. They'll try to push you towards somebody else who might know. I usually just give them a maintainer's email because they're the ones that are actually outside where I'm making these pretty PowerPoints. All right, number 3, dispose of waste properly. All right. Checking over my video for my folks over here. David's going good. I gave Chloe permission to do other work, so it's okay. She's allowed to be late to the game. All right, there we go. Dispose of waste properly. So those the two main kinds of waste that we see are trash, different food waste that we kind of get, and human waste, very much post-food waste. Let's start out with trash, and then we'll kind of go further from there. First thing, foremost, before I forget, I start out with this picture, is that pack it in, pack it out is an amazing phrase. We want people to think past that for leave no trace, but we also very much want them to pack it in, pack it out. Don't ever burn your trash, because even though it does disappear, it is helping to contribute to haze, aka ruining my views. The heavy metals can kind of continue to sit in the fire pits, as well as the smells will continue to sit in the fire pits, very much making it a place for bears and other animals with amazing senses of smell to continue to come back to. All right, so really just in general, we want everything that you're kind of bringing, ideally you're taking everything you're bringing into the woods out back with you. So setting yourself up for success for there, planning ahead and preparing would be breaking down on bulky packaging before you head out. Kind of, take your Nature Valley bars out of the cardboard box and, just bring those in regular. If you're gonna take the corner off of a wrapper in particular, leave the corner on. Be mindful of the small pieces of trash that are in your pocket that might fall out in particular. If you have extra food, let's talk about a sump style system. So there are a couple different options that you can do with food bits, basically treating it like poop in a cat hole, filtering out the kind of hard food bits to not like a cat hole, of digging a hole and kind of throwing things down in there. If you want to properly sump like Saws does, and use a screen to kind of very much take the solids, filter that out like these two adorable little Cub Scouts, and pack out that trash afterwards. Or if you want to be like a boss, clean the sides of your pot like most thru hikers, and just to show you, take it with you, and that's great. Really just what we're worried about more than anything is just when we end up spreading food, even if it's decomposable, it will take a long time to decompose, and where we leave it is where people are. We don't want to spread food and feed animals to bring them more to our area. So disposing of that waste, our trash, is that much more important. So one of our bigger problems in the Southern Appalachians is this thing you'll see in the bottom left, your downy daisies, your toilet paper tulips, your toilet paper on the ground, surface dumps. I've stepped on poop twice, once on my thru hike, once working as a ranger, and it was two of the worst days I've ever spent in the backcountry. This is a very avoidable problem that I know, again, people are probably very well intentioned, but it's not something that most people want to go out of their way to ask their friends, hey, before I have to poop, how do I poop in the woods? If people have to poop, they're not going to ask, they're going to run off and panic. That's how you get surface dumps. That's how I end up with poop on the bottom of my shoe. Which, if you care about leave no trace, especially sucks, because you're not going to go to a stream and wash off that poop, because that's exactly what we're trying to avoid here. Future Giardia. So what we're asking in the Southern Appalachians in particular is to continue to cat hole. For the very most part, again, always plan ahead and prepare and ask the land manager if they've changed up anything. But dig that hole 6 to 8 inches deep. Use it. Poop in it, enjoy it, use some kind of wiping material. Toilet paper is still totally fine in the Southeast, but I also have used and would recommend all the things that you'll see in the bottom right of this picture. Shout out to snow. Snow contours, it dissolves, and it wakes you up in the morning. Fantastic toilet paper, especially if you've forgotten something. Now, so a lot of people also don't know, because we're going to really get this point across, how to poop outside. Here's another classic positions. These two fellas, shout out to Gray Buckle for sending me the meme that these gels were with. I call that Hands Across America. That's true friendship. You see, Rangers Jake Smith and Stephen Aaron in the top right teaching a bunch of middle schoolers how to poop in the woods. Boy, were those middle schoolers terrified of that. Those two kids seem cool enough to try some things out. But again, you see this illustration of a couple other different ideas. This is generally not as awkward talking about this to silence, talking to my camera in the woods, but it's also important to think about and to plan for before you have to go to the bathroom. Because I'm sorry, if things are happening, if you've hit threat level midnight, and then you start to go 200 feet away from the trail or a water source, and then you start to think of where you might go, you're just not setting yourself up for a proper leave no trace cat hole over 200 feet from the trail and 200 feet from water. So more shout-outs for disposing of waste properly, trying to add in a little different aspects. I want to show some pictures of Rick, who I think is on the call, some other different aspects. This is a picture of what it takes for people to use privies in the Smokies. This is a delivery that we did last year. All those bags are 40-pound bags of specific Park Service mulch that can be used in privies that cannot come from too far outside of the park, because we're not bringing pests in for this, that have to be gone through a particular shredder, can have to be weighed correctly, and yes, brought in through helicopter. It takes a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Our new marketing campaign of the future is your poops in the Privies and the Smokies are the most expensive poops you've ever taken. It's an important story to kind of share. I'm especially glad to share it with some other managers. Other folks, a lot of the illustrations that you're seeing are from this gentleman holding up a wag bag with 8 days on it. He's very proud that he was able to kind of keep everything contained in the 8 days that we spent during our Knowles course on a glacier. Kind of we're a place where you cannot dig cat holes, where you can't dig into 8 feet of snow, because if you poop, it'll be on ice until it melts. So wag bags, poop tubes, another thing that he has had to use because he's a big wall rock climber. Poop tubes are becoming more and more common for rock climbers in particular, and the Access Fund, Carolina Climbers Coalition, and Leave No Trace has great descriptors for how to do it. So yes, those 2 containers, if you're not hearing me right, those 2 containers are the proper ways to poop in the backcountry in a lot of high alpine areas. All right. Principle number 4, leave what you find. All right. Hand signal people, thank you for staying on with me. Leave it, leave it, leave it. In a nutshell, everything that you enjoyed, everything that you would think to take, a flower that you find so beautiful, an arrowhead, a feather, everything that you like, if you take it, you take everyone else's opportunity to enjoy, to have that same moment that you just had. It's the same story of our impacts. It's when we're in the woods, it's amazing that we can go out in these places that millions and billions of people can recreate on. But when we're out there, it feels like it's all ours, that we're by ourselves. That can lead us down a path, especially in these instances, that if I walk upon a meadow and pick a flower for my wife, you know, trying to be considerate because I know it'll put a smile on her face, that action could very much kind of start the dominoes to lead to some major problems for wildlife, for changing the area, for changing the experience, local ecology, and all that jazz. One of the major case studies that we stick to are petrified forests. When people visited in the 20s, I couldn't find any pictures in particular, but it was anecdotally stated that you could not see the ground that you see right now. The stumps that you see are too heavy for people to carry off, thus is why you see it. We're missing the whole graveling of petrified forest that used to be, because people would just come up and take it. And again, a really interesting tangent and shout out to different kinds of management in petrified forest in general. I got to visit it as I was driving through 40. Petrified Forest Wilderness is bisected by Interstate 40, just like Asheville. So if you're driving on 40 going out west, you might as well stop by. It is a 50,000 acre wilderness with a couple miles of trails. So it's very much low trailed. As you see it right there, they kind of just say, go nuts. It is very much cool. You'd think that it might be overly impacted because of it, but I feel like the lack of facilitation of hiking, people are not really going out, and especially going to find the little corners where you can still find the small amounts of petrified forest to load your pockets with. One of the other things that I saw a sign on particular that I very much liked, that I know Hawaii goes on, is a good messaging that has worked for them, and that people swear by, is the curse of the petrified wood, as well as the curse of the volcanic rocks. There are websites that are dedicated to why people's lives have been ruined by taking things from the woods. And though I don't have to agree with the science, I love the messaging. If people are scared to take things from the woods, all that much better. I don't want them to I don't want to discourage people from going outside. But I hope that you get what I'm saying, is that I would rather the woods not be picked dry, even if that's on, you know, a curse that, you know, may well be very much true. I didn't take any petrified wood. All right, leave what you find is also a stickier one too. What if it's for education? I was also hiking with my wife, who's a science teacher. If she takes a piece of petrified wood and teaches with it for the next 40 years, is that a bad take? No, it's not. I'm going to be honest with you. Did she take one? I actually don't know. When she wasn't sure if she was going to take a piece of petrified wood, I turned my back and she made a decision for herself, and we didn't talk about it again. To this day, she actually doesn't remember if she took it. I get a lot of friends shooting me something in a Snapchat or Insta story of when they find arrowheads. What if you actually find an awesome arrowhead? How do you not take it home with you? I don't know. It's nobody else will ever enjoy it. It's a part of cultural history that kind of, to me, belongs at that point. So whenever I found arrowheads in the backcountry, and I've taken the GPS point, I've sent it to the archaeologist, and I did what the archaeologist told me to do at the time, is to toss it 30 feet off trail. He said that I got all the information I need. I do not need to find it. I don't want anybody else to find it. Basically, he would rather punt it because he doesn't trust anyone to see an arrowhead and leave it. I understand that. Seashells, I mean, again, the levels of different, the one point that I really want to get across is that these are not rules, they are principles. This is all gray area, and I want to set you up for success to make your own personal decisions. All right, principle number 5, minimize campfire impacts. So just to to bring out, this was an important enough principle or important enough messaging to get across in 1944 with that amazing marketing campaign, amazing messaging around Smokey. Because as I've tried to use Smokey at Bear and have him at every one of my events in the past, it is important that he's very much tied to this message in particular of very much limiting wildfires as opposed to prescribed burns or different kind of management strategies. Minimizing campfire impacts is that much more important because from someone who's had to work in an area like Limbo Gorge that catches on fire every other year because of an unintended campfire, a lot of these fires can burn entirely too hot and mess up a lot of the local ecology in particular. They obviously can take away a lot of the opportunities and change the characteristics of that natural place, as well as they end up taking and using up a lot of areas in particular. The picture that we're looking at right now is of what you can see in all too many campsites. In the campsite inventory that I showed you, a lot of the red and data points that we collected with the damaged trees that we see in almost every single Appalachian Trail campsite. Really just getting the point across to people that when you carve into a tree, when you cut into the cork cambium, you open it up for infection, and trees don't have neosporin or Band-Aids. They don't have a mama taking care of them or making sure something stays clean. So yes, those cuts can very much lead to the death of that tree, and are for a lot of reasons, or why we're seeing a lot of canopy loss in campsites in particular. Another great Jeff Marion 20-page grad school document. Another one. Again, we very much tell people to burn only dead and down wood, and if you're doing it to try to keep it small, there are a lot of good opportunities to kind of find something different other than just having a campfire. And if you're gonna have a campfire, again, having a small one, you can just have a candle. As soon as it gets dark, a candle will do all the same effects that you were hoping to have for a campfire. Even just an incense burning was one that I've used in the past. Nalgene around a Lucy lights are amazing, and a headlamp around a Nalgene are the classics that will continue to be good. Again, this is what it looks like, especially in the Limbo Gorge when fires go unattended. This is from the Table Rock Fire of 2015. Principle number 6, respect wildlife. So there are 2 ones here. I like to do kind of a rutting thing, but there's also a very much of a distance one you kind of want to set yourself up. The thumbs up rule, holding your thumb up to make sure you're maintaining the proper amount of distance. Really, what we're trying to do is we want to keep animals wild. We want to make sure they don't get our food, so they don't get habituated and get kind of brought in. This is a picture that it can the top left, that can be taken all too easy in White Mountain National Forest. Gray jays or white jays for hundreds of years have been habituated so much that almost every thru hiker has one buzz their head, or they'll hang out right above your head like you're a Disney princess, which is delightful because they're looking for this level of handout because it has been such a regular point. It's one of the reasons why you'll be at subalpine for the east and see such a juicy fat bird and wonder how it could be. And at the end of the day, it's the same classical condition that we all exhibit. It's the same reason that if I shake the cat treats, my cat is absolutely sprinting towards me. If animals are given the opportunity to eat calorie-dense things, they're going to stop and break away from their natural, instinctual finding of foods and move towards those calorie-dense things. If they come across a tree that has this big, juicy, dry bag that's filled with calorie-dense food that's improperly hung and they eat it, why wouldn't they try to eat the next one they come across? Bears are very smart and very capable. As you can kind of see, I've got some of the claw pictures. Again, forgive the formatting that I did not recheck on some of this, but as you can see for the black bear picture, the claws that they have are these amazing grappling hooks that makes it amazing to climb up trees in particular, as well as kind of continue to hook on things, and they can kind of hang on those in particulars in ways that we would never want to use our nails for. I mean, what I saw on Facebook the other day, this bear on top of this bird feeder, it's just a new instance of different of how impressed I am to see how bears get. And especially this bear that I recently saw with his ATC hat on, again, styling. More shout outs to fantastic messaging, more than I'm seeing, one from the past and again, one from the present day. National Park Service released this big one on the left that you're seeing in the past couple of weeks. Shout outs to coronavirus for more social distancing and getting to what we talked about before. They're the best way to respect the wildlife or help keep them wild. Give them their distance. Do not stress them away from where they are. Do not feed them and change their wild behaviors. And continue to share that message to other people, because that's the way, those are some of the worst ways that we can kind of get. I love this sign from 30 years ago. Again, sign going across all Arctic ground squirrels. It's a warning for the ground squirrels in particular. That's just another interpretation classic. It's not a cliche, it's a classic because it works. Keep making signs directed towards the animal. They're just adorable and people actually read them. A former SAWS wilderness ranger created this nice Venn diagram. I love it so much, and then I'm going to pick it apart a little bit. This is just an easy way to kind of simplify, never throwing your trash on the fire in front country camping, and if you're car camping, very much throwing your food in the car. Like depending on where you are, to just absolutely never sleep with your food, even though I know a lot of very good friends of mine did that throughout their through hike. Never, ever, ever feed any animals. Bear canister is king. It's what I'm totally biased on. I haven't used rucksacks all that much, but I have seen several bear canisters that have spent months in the backcountry and that have come out looking like this. You can see some punctures and scratchies on the top of this one, but like that one and this one too, even more. This is the top that I stole from SAWS that SAWS gave me rather. That spent 9 months in the Joyce Kilmer Slick Rock. Now, the contents of the bear canister were disgusting when they found it, but it was amazing that it spent all year without bears getting to it. The bear canister was still intact, and it still works to this day. So the only so that's not what I'm going to poke a hole in terms of bear canisters. And just another quick shout out to bear canisters. I know they're awkward. I know they're 3 pounds. There's nothing easy about hiking in the woods. Netflix has always been easier. Come on, come on. Take a bear canister. Real quick shout out and story though, when you're in bear country, when you're in the Smokies, when you're in Yosemite, throwing food in your car might not always be the best idea, but if you do, make sure to lock your doors. This is Socash, where we run some of our trail crew programs out of. This is where Rick is living right now. Rick, this is actually a live feed, so you can just come up to a window and wave real quick. Cool. One of the things that we saw a couple years ago from one of our trail crew leaders, he was parked right in front of where this garage is, in front of where you see the yellow doors. And he left his car unlocked with no food in it in particular. He woke up one morning and to find an excessive amount of damage, and I believe a bear still in the car. Let's just go with that for the sake of it. But either way, his car was totaled because a bear ended up finding its way inside, pooping and destroying and every piece of the interior all over the place. In the 90s and early 2000s, when in Yosemite, when they had to crack down on a lot of bears breaking into cars, it had to be so that coolers are still not allowed to be visible in the back seat of a car, because bears have learned and been habituated towards that. So depending on the situation, you might have to go further down the line and take further steps. So, all right, principle number 7. Be considerate of other visitors. Be considerate of other visitors means a lot of different things to a lot of different times. So it can mean everything from walking further to not get your secondhand smoke from your cigarette in anyone's face, to listen to an earbud in the woods, to be able to listen to your jams, to listen to other people trying to hear you, as well as not blast some random fish that I do not want to hear. I'm trying to listen to some birds. It is, this picture is really trying to get at the idea of trying to give other people space. If you find someone camping, a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable camping next to someone. So if they're all along the AT, they see a tent, they go, bam, that's where I'm camping. On the same regard, the kind of person that camps by themselves likes to camp by themselves. So a lot of times you will see just people camping around that person. Always a good idea to just say, hey, how's it going? Check in with them. See if they don't mind having a tent by. Just like with Leave No Trace, give them some more context. Be like, hey man, I'm actually not that comfortable camping out in the woods. Can I camp around you if that's fine? It's amazing. I've been told that on multiple occasions, including my through hike, even though I was a stranger to that person. So in theory, I was just as much who they should have been worried about. But It's not always so. Again, always talk to someone, let someone know. And in that regard, trying, and we'll talk about messaging a little bit more even though I'm running over time, exactly trying to get that message across to other people, trying to be just as kind about that. Okay, again, sorry for starting to rush a little bit more towards the end, but a lot of the take-home messaging around Leave No Trace in particular is just going outside is the best. Leave No Trace is not meant to keep people from going outside. It's meant to give people the context for everyone to be able to go outside and to have the very minimum amount of impact. I say minimum impact because it's unrealistic to think we can float above the trail. Call before you go. Pick up the phone, call your land manager because they're a delightful person that I'm talking to right now probably. And because they have the most up-to-date, amazing information. Who knows, a problem bear could be hanging out in your favorite camping spot, but not because of you, because you always hang your food properly. Bury your toilet paper and poop in the Southern Appalachians. I say Southern Appalachians in particular because if you're on a glacier like you saw homie Ryan holding up his wag bag, it might not be appropriate to cat hole. Another thing you can bring up on the phone, as fun as that is. But burying poop is totally great. If you're, let's say, if you're just going to use some toilet paper in particular, feel free to just stab that underground, just bury it. Burn only dead and down wood. Try not to ever push anything or cut anything down for firewood in particular, and being considerate in general. Those hit some of the major problems that we have in the Southeast and on public lands. Going out on a weekday is also the best advice I could ever give to anyone. We will see 80% of our usage on public lands on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you go on one of those other days, you are much less likely to see people. That permit system for Limbo Gorge does not apply on Monday through Thursday ever because it's never been a problem. Quick more shout out to Leave No Trace. Go check out the website. It's getting better and better. They have a lot of great tools. You just got yourself an awareness workshop. We normally do trainer courses. We had to cancel a Leave No Trace Master Educator course that Chloe was going to put on this year. That was going to be absolutely fantastic and great. But I could not be happier to help facilitate. Feel free to follow up with me if you want to further anything with Leave No Trace in the future. Thank y'all so much for listening to that. And let's take a couple minutes really quickly. All right, y'all. So thank you so much. Quick break, and then we're going to close out next half an hour. Now that we've gotten all the context behind everything, we want to talk about exactly how we're going to talk about it. Talking about it. All right, let me real quick before we go, before I start again, I had some really good thank you for all the delightful and positive encouragement in the chat box. First of all, it was great. Again, great for the context. For a good note from Stuart about taking a picture of anything you want to take with you. That is always a good idea. Yeah, especially for an arrowhead in particular. Yeah, because I mean, you got to at least snap a picture of that thing. Any kind of non-consumptive use is always a good idea. Like that. And I appreciate, sorry, I'm still trying to get my PowerPoint to work again. Just a moment. And I also appreciate the sentiment that it is that it's a felony to take any of the cultural resources. While that is very good information and very good to go on anyway, and it's helping contributor. Theoretically, of all Leave No Trace, if any of the malfeasance or impacts were illegal, hopefully we would be able to give people education and context to kind of get across that. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, it's a felony, but hopefully we can give enough context to make people to give their own informed decision and leave it no matter what. Then again, we're talking about an arrowhead. It needs to be a felony. Okay, heavens. All right, Scotty, are you back? You might have to tell me what you guys actually see when you see something, because I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties.
Yeah, I'm back, and all I see is your face, your beautiful face.
I'm sorry about that one. Okay. All right. What do you guys see right now?
See your screen.
You can see my screen? Is it
Yeah.
an image?
It's
Words?
Yes.
All right, y'all. What state is this in? It's on the AT. It's not wilderness. It's New Jersey, y'all. Again, New Jersey. It's beautiful. All right, y'all. Authority of the resource. So really, what we're trying to get across here are the reason why we're doing all these decisions, the reason why I would dig a hole before I have to take a poop, because at the end of the day, it would be easier to just poop on the surface, is for the sake of the local ecology, is for the sake of the wildlife, it's for the sake of your water sources, it's so that resource and the quality of that wilderness area do not degrade in the slightest for the sake of the wilderness, full stop. Also, for the sake of people that are kind of going, also for the sake of people and people's experience. For wilderness in particular, it has that kind of motif. And please don't read this, allow me. A wilderness, in contrast to those areas where man and his works dominate the landscape, is hereby recognized as an area where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by man, and where man himself is a visitor who does not remain. An area of wilderness is fundamentally defined to mean in this act as an area of undeveloped federal land retaining to its primeval character. Really what I'm trying to get across is that what I forgot to bring up in particular that has always been a conflict since we started public lands is a conflicting mandate between having and taking care of ecological resources and maintaining that quality and people's experience. Now this Wilderness Act, the reason why I would put this much text on a screen, and the next slide is text heavy as well, is because the Wilderness Act went out of its way to say, this is the ecological character, the wilderness character, this is higher, humans are supposed to be a temporary force that are supposed to visit, enjoy, but it's not, the mandate, it tips the scales towards people in wilderness. And that's awesome. That being said too, I, as a wilderness dog, and still love to go outside and enjoy lands. I'm not a wilderness supremacist per se, to say that everything needs to be wilderness and that's the way it should be, but at differing degrees of public lands is what I personally believe provides the greatest amount of experiences for folks. So again, now we're going back to this thought process. Authority meaning the power, influence, or command of thought. Again, is what we're trying to get across, that Dr. Wallace gets across, is that wilderness, again, is one of the few places where we really want to get that across, that it's what we're going on. I think I have some slides out of order, so forgive me. I'm actually just going to skip that last one. Actually, no, yeah, so basically, I always feel very much obligated. Coming through authority of the resource kind of comes down to your Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Authority of the resource being the context for you, the education and knowledge that you have that comes with all leave no trace we just talked through, gives you the option that in the right circumstance you can do everything you can to limit your impact. Now we can see with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those leave no trace things can kind of fall out, or I guess you can very much try to leave no trace somewhere above safety, somewhere in love and belonging. Let's say love and belonging for that public lands in particular is really how we're trying to tie that in. What I mean is that if you don't plan ahead and prepare in the first place, that once your safety is kind of gone, if you have to do a search and rescue, we're not worried about leave no trace. We're not worried about limiting your impact. There's a certain amount that if life is in risk, that we are going to have to make impacts that probably could have been preventable that to save that life. So we very much want people to plan ahead and prepare to make sure they properly can navigate, they probably have dehydration and proper equipment to enjoy their outdoor recreation in particular. Set yourself up for success limit the impacts. In Joyce Kilmer, right by the hangover, there's a very large 5-acre clear cut from a couple years ago that's just about grown back through from a helicopter lift that kind of, was it needed? Not necessarily. Could have been prevented? Oh, you bet. So what I'm trying to get across here is that, one, you need the context to make the right decisions. Again, you need the education. People are very well-intentioned, but they may not know. Even there are a bunch of very good hikers making very preventable impacts. But even with all that education and context, that if you are in distress, those impacts are unavoidable. So prevent that level of distress is what we're hoping to kind of get across to people. But really, so how we talk about this to people is really that much more important. Though something may be illegal or a felony, I like the idea of trying to convince them to not do it without ever having to bring it up to them. Because at the end of the day, where I was a wilderness ranger for SAWS and getting to be a wilderness ranger intern with the Forest Service, I never had a flip book. I mean, with a nonprofit, of course not. Never been any amount of enforcement, nor have I never really wanted to in particular. I love having education on my back and be able to talk to people in general. It takes a lot of pressure off my shoulders. I let them know right off the bat, oh, no, this isn't illegal. I just wanted to let you know to kind of get this kind of point across. That just as you see my kind of context here, that I'm just kind of hanging my my food just so bears don't get it. They get habituated, they become wild, because at the end of the day, if bears, start to get fed and they learn more and more that the calorie-dense food is around people, they can hang around people too much. When they hang around people too much, they might end up coming in contact with that person, but more likely than not, before that's a problem, that bear is going to probably have to be removed or eradicated because of the threat of it doing damage to people will be too great if it's hanging around people so much. So even though I don't think a bear is coming tonight, I'm going to throw up a bear hang just as I would put on a seatbelt. Even though, to be honest with you guys, I don't want to put on a seatbelt either. But I'm doing it because I hear my mom's voice in my head. Another authority to kind of go across. So I'll kind of push through forward. So again, you want to give people the context on that stuff. When you're talking to people in the field or talking to people in general, whether you have a uniform or you're just a regular hiker on your off time, you just want to give people context to make changes in the future. What the biggest thing that people don't necessarily think is that you don't want to make any changes for your present action. There's a limited amount of changes you want for present action. What we're trying to do is just change everything in the future. I'll talk more about that. So are you ready to make a difference? You just studied that thing. You've well versed in leave no trace. You knew all that hand signals before I just talked at you on Zoom for an hour and a half. So you're absolutely ready. I'm gonna stop you real quick. Sorry about that. Situational awareness is the most important thing, especially if you were like me and a person who went into the backcountry with very limited situational awareness training, or rather no enforcement training, nothing to kind of engage in people, or nothing too extensive to, let's say, defend myself if anyone wanted to attack me in general. So your situational awareness is the most important part. What I'm trying to get across is that if you want to talk to someone in the backcountry who maybe it is your job as a ridge runner, that they are cutting a tree down, but you want to give them context, still follow your gut. Listen to yourself. Pay attention to what's going on. Really look around. Are there a bunch of empty beer cans around them? Are they swinging the axe really sporadically? Do you see a gun? Do you see an empty gun holster? Now, just because you see those things, what are the context behind them? I've done plenty of public context with people with guns because I've worked in areas where it has been legal to hunt. It just makes perfect sense. Now, it's a totally different thing if I see an empty holster and a dude who looks very drunk. So paying attention to the tingle in your gut is the most important part. Also, common sense. Yes, the Park Service has added issue guidance about not taking selfies with bears in a bunch of different national parks, all on their own in a silo, because there have been problems in a bunch of different national parks. Check Rocky Mountain National Park. Give it a Google afterwards. Your safety is the most important thing. It's just so important. It doesn't matter if you're catching someone red-handed, even if they're in Georgia and they're going to Maine and they're going to do it 100 more times. Your safety is the most important part of anything like that. If you're feeling remotely unsafe before you go in to a situation, then just skip it. Even if it is your job to do public context on the field and nothing else, I'm telling you to skip it, or talk to your manager about that, or call your manager and tell you why you skipped it. New manager may want you to just skip everything that involves guns, booze, and drugs. Personally, depending on who I was working with, they didn't necessarily have as hard of a line. I knew that if I saw, when I was working in Linville, if I saw a bunch of App State kids smoking weed by the river, I needed to give them a little context, or else they would see a uniform running away from them and they would freak out. If I gave them a little context, letting them know I'm not enforcement, they were actually all ears and wanted to hear why I was actually out there. So again, could be a good moment. Talk to your superiors. Make sure you know what's the important line to kind of come across. Anything. Now, if you do feel safe, if it feels like a good situation, these are a list of things that we do in particular when we're trying to, again, walk up to someone, do public context in the field. Again, this presentation is very much geared towards wilderness ranger, ridge runners, but it looks like we're getting a lot of Forest Service folks that might do some public context in the field. Again, maybe someone's camping, asking permission to enter a campsite is already like giving this air of respect for other people's space that is just unexpected of public areas, because like that person knows they don't own that campsite. They just got there. And especially if you have a uniform and you could be like, are you enjoying my campsite? Like I've seen some state rangers talk like, it's that much more important to start off with that kind of respect before entering their space. I'm a, hey, how's it going, ranger? You've seen the phrase in a couple different things. Bill Hodge pointed out to me that I said it every time I answered the phone when I talked to him the first 2 years of working as a ranger, and I didn't realize how important it was to have the style of context that I made. By saying, hey, how's it going? I'm not even asking any details that could be incriminating. I'm just asking, how's it going? How's it going isn't even a question in the Southeast all that often. It can just be a hello. Hey, how's it going is a phrase that's difficult to say angry. It gives a friendly of just like, how's it going? Not to mention you're opening up the floor of like, how is it going? Are you in distress? Even though I'm a leave no trace, ridge runner, wilderness ranger, person, visitor center, ATC employee who's just on my off time, you are an expert whether you feel like it or not. And you can probably give a little more context. You probably understand your map better than your average bear. So checking how's it going, opening yourself up for help is always an amazing and delightful thing to do. Get your chit chat on. Get to know someone, talk to them a little bit, especially if you're catching someone red-handed. Say I'm in the Shining Rock Wilderness, 30 minutes outside of my house right here, and I can see someone that's having a campfire. I'm gonna say, what's up? Oh, what's up? Can I come by your campfire a little bit, chat with them for a little bit? Hey, I actually used to work as a wilderness ranger in Shining Rock. That's why I'm coming back here. I just love it so stinking much. One of the cool things I learned about here is that there was a fire that was so hot that burned a lot of the organic material that made it so difficult for a lot of this very rare ecosystem that we have around here to grow back. It's really cool, the fact that we have these big open fields, but it's also a little ominous for why it's here. And that's unfortunately some of the reasons why this, in a complete rare instance, is one of the areas in the Southeast where you can't have a fire ever, because we're really trying to manage and prevent against that. Now, hopefully that person planned ahead and prepared. And if all they really wanted to do was go outside to have a campfire, the great news is they could have gone anywhere else other than Shining Rock and Middle Prong, and hopefully they figured that out beforehand, as well as hopefully they would have found out about the bear canister requirement in Shining Rock. But again, set yourself up for success. Go to some place you can have a fire pit. There are a lot of places you can have fires even during droughts. So really, if that's what you want, go right for it. I would sit down with that campfire, have a chit chat with them, give them that context. I would never walk up to anyone's campfire, start kicking it out. Again, a stranger walking up to, normally I go with a raise of hands. I'm running low, so I'm skipping all my good priming questions. So I apologize for the 2 hours of talking straight to you, but anytime a stranger is, even if they're in the right, has tried to influence my behavior quickly without providing any context, have tried to just say, hey, don't walk there, I've been pissed off and disliked them from the get-go. Even if they're getting me good information. If you're not meeting me as a human, meeting with me shoulder to shoulder rather than face to face, if you're not coming at me as a point of blame, like shaking your finger, then I'll actually listen to you. When you start your chit chat, you explain, oh yeah, I work for the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Yeah, I'm super lucky. I get to go all over the place, hike all over the Smokies. Now you're kind of talking on, maybe you can start to, they're like, oh crap, I actually wanted to know something. What about this shelter? Now you're answering questions. You're providing value. You're establishing yourself as a place for value. Now if you're adding more information that's on, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, your agenda of keeping the wilderness, it's in a whole different light. It's not just coming across as information getting shoved in your face. You're getting more value and context from a trusted source. Again, very much accounting for people's egos is my favorite thing to do. I say to absolutely everyone, I'm sure you already know this, when I actually get to the point, or if you, oh yeah, by the way, I just want to let you guys know, before I go, boom, I just want to let you guys know, I'm sure you guys know this, but you have to, dig a cat hole around here. I'm sorry, I know it's an embarrassing thing to have to say, but we just have a lot of problems with surface dumps. But like, I'd appreciate it if you guys could help share that message. I mean, I know you guys know better. Accounting for people's egos, they're always going to be like, yes, 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 yes. No one ever goes, oh, I didn't know that at all. Especially if you're a dude. And that's just, I'm just calling it like I see it. Dudes are always just like, Especially, I've got plenty of guys say yes, 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 and then ask me the question of the answer I was giving them. Again, I'm okay with that somewhat sexist circle I'm drawing. So again, trying to account for people's egos, really breaking it down slow, and also not getting annoyed when that happens. When somebody asks you the question you just answered, really trying to talk slower. People are always very excited about everything, and they're worried about their trip. They want to make sure they're not chafing. A million things are going on in their head. So again, just trying to account for that. We're trying to provide value to people, context, education, so they make the right choices. And remember, you've already have a lot in common with that person. I may not necessarily talking about politics, and there's a reason why I've tried to not talk about politics at all, because it will get in the way of a lot of this stuff. When if it's my job to keep someone from catholing, I'd rather find a lot of common ground, get this education across, and then keep it at that, because I think that we can have a lot of good, positive stuff. But just, you have a lot in common with everyone you come across in the backcountry. You've chosen to, again, walk away from your wonderful, glorious couch, away from the years of amazing, critically acclaimed streaming that is at your fingertips, and you've decided to go outside and at times dig a hole to poop. I mean, these are a bunch of weird things that the average person does not do, that no matter what, even if that person looks weird, you have so much in common with them. So just try to find that common. Things that we don't do. So again, not necessarily hard line. I say sunglasses because if you're walking up to someone trying to make a contact, you should take off sunglasses, because if you're talking to someone and you just want to look at someone in the eyes, that's just a simple communication thing that I'll just leave up to you understanding without me explaining. Saying you're wrong. I say this, shout outs to one of my favorite cabin hosts, who I would accidentally catch saying you're wrong to people coming into the Limbo Gorge Information Cabin. And people who believe that information. Hey, I love the Limbo Gorge Park. It's one of my favorite parks ever. That's okay if they're wrong. I'm not saying let them continue to be wrong, but just, again, account for their ego. Oh, and by the way, just to let you know, it's actually one of the first national forests in the East, Pisgah National Forest, United States Forest Service, Department of Agriculture. And the Forest Service is super cool because it has, multiple use mandates. So, again, I would just start going down that. If you're a Forest Service employee who loves and knows that, and gets that deep-seated love of leave no trace because it's found in the Forest Service, then yeah, go to town. Because as soon as you hit your passion, as hopefully I'm doing in this conversation, I am looking away from my text and just rambling. Don't ever act like enforcement. Again, I would give them all that context before I would ever talk about felonies. Now, if I thought the person was going to take that arrowhead, I would lie to them. I'm not saying that I actually think going in enforcement is just not effective, like the gentleman whose name's lost on me who said in 1979 with the Forest Service. So I might say, okay, and by the way, just to let you know, taking that arrowhead is actually a felony. And the thing is about Ranger Jake Smith that's behind me is that he's kind of a hard ass. He actually really takes pride in having the most tickets of any other Forest Service officer on our district. And it helps when you're working on a district where the Forest Service officer, when that's absolutely true. I'm the law enforcement officer, rather. So again, really trying to distance yourself away from that enforcement, trying to be shoulder to shoulder to someone, even if it's something like smoking weed. Maybe I don't want people to smoke weed around shelters or on trails because it makes other people feel uncomfortable, period. That message is not effective enough to just walk up to some people smoking weed and let them know. I will try to get them across. If I don't think that's going to change anything, I will say, there's actually a cop that's going to be out here coming, or patrolling. Make up someone who's coming behind you. You can give the illusion of law enforcement to help hit your point home. 80% education, 20% enforcement. Unfortunately, that 20% enforcement's going down. Heavy jargon. Hopefully, I'm not going too heavily on jargon here. Don't break down into we're trying to prevent trammels, really in the backcountry more than anything else, without describing what trammels mean to people. like I'm doing right now. And gatekeeping. Gatekeeping, real quick to check on, is that, so I have thrown out so many different dig a hole before you poop, do that, blah, 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 that it can seem like hurdles on hurdles on hurdles for new people to come outside, and I really don't want that to be so. And that's really exactly what gatekeeping is. Like, I'm not trying to keep anyone from going outside. I would just like to limit impacts. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm coming around more and more, unfortunately, to just accepting that part of going outside is creating an impact a lot at first and getting context, becoming better and choosing to become better when nobody else is around you by yourself, because that's your land ethic development. That is the context and you making the informed decision by yourself, not because there's a cop that can see or you're worried about a cop coming along. So again, leave no traces about giving the principles. These are not rules. Give people context, but again, that's why we don't come in wagging our finger and shaming people, because it's not going to change their minds, and it's going to keep people from going outside, which is people going outside is a good thing. We want them with higher levels of mental health, lower levels of stress, enjoying and seeing the parables that you get in public lands about science and understanding, I don't know, global warming and different kind of things that you might see along those lines. Styles of public context. So again, this is geared towards those ridge runners and rangers. These are a couple things that I love and have worked for me in the past. Different styles of context. PSA. Everyone who walks around in the woods should have some level of PSA. Hi, my name is Stephen Arrow. I'm for the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. The main thing that we're actually worried, I'm out here with education. The main thing we're worried about today is trying to help prevent people from taking poops in the woods. I don't want to catch anyone taking a impactful poop in the woods. So I'm just letting everyone I come across know that if you're going to poop in the woods, go 200 feet off the trail, 200 feet from water. Again, not shaking your finger. Dig a hole 6 to 8 inches deep. You get what I'm saying. Have a clear-cut elevator speech in 30 seconds that you can get to something, unlike what I just gave you. That you can get across to people, because not even the 7 principles, but what's the one thing? What's the one thing that's a big problem in your area? Hit that point home. You'll be doing something right. Caught red-handed is on there. That's the one we kind of always talk about, but it is the rarest one you will actually see in the woods. I don't know. I see a lot more hikers than I see hikers actively doing an impact. Nature nugget. If you're with a group of people and you see a little hemlock woolly adelgid, and you check, or you see an eastern hemlock and you look under for hemlock woolly adelgids, and someone's like, "Hey, what's that?" That's actually brings in my second one. First of all, if you're looking at anything small in the woods and somebody else walks upon you, they're going to want to know what you're looking at, especially if you're in a uniform. If anyone has any remote interest, if someone asks you a question, and you have the ability to go deeper in that subject and go into a longer formal nature nugget, all that much better. That's you planning ahead and preparing as a manager and someone that can provide that level of context. Because it's cool to be able to know the 7 principles of leave no trace. It's cooler to know exactly why there are some problems. Why are there a bunch of dead trees around here? Oh, because hemlock woolly adelgid. Funny thing about hemlock woolly adelgid is actually came here as part of landscaping. A lady in Richmond wanted a conifer from Asia, so it came over as part of a landscaping project to Richmond, and now it's destroying the East Coast. Fun little context for people. Maybe they should pay attention before they plant. I hope to think so. And again, if it stresses you a lot, stop. And by that, I mean there are a million different ways to get these messages across nowadays. I'm talking your Instagram stories, your memes, talking to people on Facebook groups. But that being said, I've spent some time, I'm sure like a lot of you, talking to folks on Facebook, leave no trace wise, or let's just say around, I don't know, COVID-19. There's a lot of anger that can get thrown around, and if it's really stressing you out, it's not effective, then don't do it. It's weird. I get so much more stressed out talking to people on Facebook than I've ever gotten stressed out talking to people in the woods. Everyone's in a much better place when we're all in the woods talking about stuff on the trail. And again, talk to over 10,000 people. I must have upset even a couple of those with how they talked to me, and no one yelled at me or anything along those lines, unlike what I feel like the all caps really does me on Facebook. So again, overall goals: influence future behavior on trail. Stress the parts that are getting stress on I guess the stress on areas that are more popular, I think, is what I was trying to get across. The fact that there are some areas that are getting more impacted. That will kind of start painting the all-around picture that when more people come out here, impact comes to that no matter what. Come correct, know your problems. Like I was just saying about those nature nuggets, the more you know about your woods, the more questions you can answer. If you can answer a question, especially if it's from a kid about the woods, then you've made my dream come true. Just, again, provide people information, let them make their own informed decisions. I really, truly believe, and I know that a lot of people are very well-intentioned, that 80% of this work is that education and context before people go outside. If we can get people that information, as the numbers of people that go outside go up, the numbers of impacts and things that we see don't have to go up as well. And continue to try to find new ways to innovate. Don't wait for having a uniform on to talk to people. Half the reason why I actually left being a ranger and came back is because I kept finding myself doing public context in my personal time. Again, a meme can really get something across without ever having a negative conversation with anyone on Facebook. The sky is the limit in my eyes. And that's it, y'all. Thank you so much for letting me talk at you for 2 hours. I'll stay around for as long as anyone wants because I've not really been paying attention to questions all that much. There is a survey in there to kind of help account to get some to get some volunteer hours for AT maintainers. Please click on that in the chat box. But seriously, I know a lot of you have spent so much time on Zoom and it is numbing. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and spending it with me. I really like Leave No Trace a lot, and I hope it showed. And you've earned some pictures of my wonderful pets. All right, we got Nugget in the top left. Those are Max and Panda with that chainsaw at the bottom. All sorts of good things. So thank you. That's all I got. Feel free to throw in, unmute yourselves, ask questions, or just nod and leave and do what you got to do. Kathleen, I agree the internet is a tough place. And I think that is just, brevity is starting to be mwah to me. So yes, it is. Yes, I do absolutely, sorry, and I'm continuing to look down. Authority of the resource is always, that kind of context, it's better than nothing. If someone's already impacting, then you might, if you can give some kind of context, that's great. I think it's better than nothing, but don't yell at anyone. Because that could be worse than nothing because it could turn into spite. Again, people don't like getting information that way. Has anyone ever had anyone yell anything at you as a pedestrian and they're in a car? It doesn't matter what they're yelling, it always pisses you off. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Appreciate y'all coming in. Thank you so much to Scotty, regular Saws OGs, who I've gotten to work with the last 10 years, one of my favorite people in the absolute world. Thank you so much, Scotty. Thank you so much, Chloe, for coming in and helping me out. And again, everyone for coming on. And good luck. Happy hand washing. All that, yes.
All right, you done with me?
I'm done with everyone.
All right, man. I'll catch you later.
All right. Thank you again, Scotty.
Yeah, happy to do it. Have a good one.
Y'all too.